The 1922 Committee is a formal grouping of Conservative MPs in the House of Commons. Unlike other informal groupings and caucus, such as Amber Rudd's One Nation caucus, the 1922 Committee consists of the entirety of the backbench MPs from the Conservative Party. Backbenchers are the members of Parliament who don't hold an official government position. Contrary to what the name suggests, the committee was formed in 1923, so this group has been together for nearly 100 years. Why are we talking about them today in relation to Brexit? Well, they have a number of powers which can severely impact the path that Brexit and the Conservative Party takes going forward. Before that though, let's talk about the committee a little more. Give me just a couple of minutes of history here. Flashback to 1915. The Liberals and Conservatives formed a coalition during the First World War. The coalition continued after the war, with the Conservatives being the largest coalition party. However, Lloyd George, a Liberal, remained the Prime Minister. Lloyd George was not popular with Conservatives, especially as the coalition government introduced Liberal policies. This led several Conservative MPs to disaffiliate from the coalition and go into opposition. By October 1922, 65 Conservative MPs sat on the opposition. In September and October 1922, a diplomatic crisis in Turkey ensued, and Lloyd George's reaction increased Conservatives' frustrations with the coalition. Conservative MPs blamed Lloyd George for the unnecessary confrontation that his decisions led to. Chamberlain, the Conservatives' leader, argued the decision to continue the coalition was necessary, as he calculated that the next general election would produce no overall majority, so he wanted the party to stay close to their coalition partners. The Conservative membership was of the opinion that standing as a coalition would split the party. By the summer, 184 MPs and candidates said they would stand as an independent Conservative and not as part of the coalition. By agreeing to stand as a coalition, Chamberlain was ignoring the advice of party managers, senior party figures, junior ministers and backbenchers. Then party chairman of the Conservatives, George Younger, was blunt in his assessment, stating, "It is a question of either breaking the party or breaking you, and I intend to do the latter." Having observed the strong anti-coalition sentiment, Chamberlain attempted to bypass his party's next conference by calling a meeting of the Conservative MPs at the Carlton Club. The timing was deliberate to avoid the Newport by-election the previous day. The by-election was a contest between an independent Conservative, a Liberal who previously held the seat, and a Labour candidate. A Liberal, and especially Labour victory, would prove Chamberlain's thesis that Conservatives were performing poorly and a coalition was necessary. However, he was wrong. The Conservative candidate won with 40% of the vote, with the Liberal candidate polling third. This crucially undermined Chamberlain's argument that continuing the coalition was necessary, as a hung parliament no longer looked as likely. So what's the point of that long story? Speaking of TLDR, that story was definitely too long. Well, we think that there were some interesting parallels with today that can be drawn. The leadership was described as very rigid and unbending, with support for the leadership having ebbed away from otherwise loyal MPs. The prominent question at the Carlton Club was maintaining the coalition with the Liberals. Chamberlain had calculated that the coalition was necessary, but the party disagreed. After the Carlton Club meeting and the by-election, Chamberlain was replaced by Bonar Law as leader, with the backing of a large majority of members. Today's existential question is how to resolve Brexit. The Prime Minister stands by her deal, which he sees as the only possible way to leave the EU in a timely and orderly manner. Others, especially the ERG, disagree and believe that a rise in the Brexit Party proves this point. With the events happening now being broadly similar to those in 1922, the events that created the 1922 Committee are influencing its actions today. The Carlton Club meeting sought to resolve the splits between the leadership, backbench and membership. It did so by replacing Chamberlain with Bonar Law. The modern 1922 Committee may seek to do the same thing by making it possible for Theresa May to be challenged and replaced by a candidate they believe is more able to unify the party and manage Brexit more effectively. The 1922 Committee, also known as the 22, still meets weekly while Parliament is in session. During these meetings, the committee allows for backbench MPs to coordinate and discuss their views away from the influence of frontbench or shadow frontbench ministers. An additional role of the committee, which has come to the fore of late, is for the chairman to communicate the feeling within the party to the leadership and to manage the election of the next party leader. Sir Graham Brady, as chairman, is expected to have meetings with the Prime Minister today to communicate concerns the committee has regarding her leadership, including her handling of Brexit. Beyond just the chairman, currently Graham Brady, the committee is governed by an executive of 18. Here are the rest of the executive members, so pause the video and see if you can spot your MP. The 1922 committee has become more prominent recently due to two main factors. Firstly, its role in linking the backbench with leadership. In a period of significant party disunity, and with a leader lacking the confidence of her party, this bridge is significant for determining and communicating the intentions of both the party leadership and backbench to each other. Secondly, its role in determining the rules which govern leadership elections is extremely important. The effects of changing leader at this critical juncture of the Brexit process will determine the path the UK takes in the coming years, and the form of Brexit. Prime Ministers govern with the confidence of the House, yet the past several months have demonstrated that the Prime Minister does not govern with the full confidence of her own party, and theoretically without the confidence of the House, despite defeating a no-confidence motion earlier this year. Changing leaders could correct this constitutional anomaly. Schedule 2 of the Conservative Party Constitution details how leadership elections operate. It's a two-stage process. The first stage consists of a ballot of Conservative MPs to determine a choice of candidates to be presented to the membership. The second stage is a ballot of the membership to elect a leader from the short list determined in the first stage. The first stage is governed using rules determined by the 1922 committee. Leadership elections have not always been conducted in this manner. Prior to 1965, leaders were not elected, but emerged from an opaque process of negotiations and soundings, involving senior party figures. This process was last used in the 1963 leadership elections. The rules were subsequently changed, and then changed again in 1997. These new rules, which are still used today, are known as the Hague Rules. Under the Hague Rules, the leadership election is initiated by two circumstances. The incumbent Prime Minister resigns, or there's a challenge to the Prime Minister's leadership. A challenge is initiated if 15% of the parliamentary party submit letters of no confidence to Sir Graham Brady as chairman of the 1922 committee. If the challenge is initiated and the incumbent Prime Minister is successful by receiving majority support, they cannot be challenged again for another 12 months. If they're unsuccessful, they'll be removed from office and won't be allowed to take part in the subsequent leadership election to find their successor. During the challenge, if one of the two final candidates drops out, the remaining contender is declared winner, without the need for a ballot of the membership. This was the case in 2016, after Andrea Leadsom pulled out, leaving Theresa May as the new Prime Minister. In the current political climate, where the relationship between Theresa May and her party is not exactly harmonious, the role of the committee becomes extremely important. As mentioned earlier, the committee acts as a means to communicate the feeling of the party to the leader. Today, Chairman Sir Graham is expected to have another meeting with the Prime Minister regarding her leadership. It's not beyond the realm of possibility that he will emphasise, possibly for the second or third time, that the party is dissatisfied with her leadership and her lack of a timetable for leaving Number 10. This raises questions about the Hague Rules, specifically the grace period leaders have if they succeed in defeating a vote of no confidence in their leadership. In the 12th of December last year, Theresa May was challenged to a vote of no confidence. She won by 200 votes in favour to 117 votes against. As stipulated in the committee's rules governing leadership elections, the PM was safe for a 12-month grace period where she cannot be challenged again. The Prime Minister's fate, and therefore also the fate of Brexit, rests on the 1922 committee. They have the power to alter the rules governing leadership challenges, and may do so at an executive meeting. At the last executive meeting, they decided against a rule change by a vote of 9-7 with 2 abstentions. If they're satisfied with Mrs May today, they might keep the existing rules unchanged, leaving her safe. In fact, many speculate that's why she announced that she was holding another Brexit vote in June, to keep the 22s happy. If they aren't happy, they may decide to alter the rules to make a change possible before the end of the current grace period. This could be done in a number of ways, from shortening the grace period to changing the threshold required to trigger a premature vote of no confidence. This has the potential to significantly impact the Brexit process. It's no secret that MPs and activists, as well as the electorate at large, are growing tired of Mrs May. The latter over the delay to Brexit, and the former for various reasons, from poor polling to her obstinacy over setting a clearer timeline for her departure from number 10. As I mentioned, today is the day of the meeting, so we'll know a lot more about the 22's plans very soon. We will of course be reporting on any news related to this, especially if they make a move to try and oust the Prime Minister. To make sure you don't miss a thing, subscribe to us on YouTube. You can also follow us across our other social channels to get exclusive content and articles. You can find us by searching for TLDR News.